What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here to examine X-Men issue 122. This issue is by Chris Claremont, John Byrne, Terry Austin, Tom Orzechowski, Glynis Wein, and edited by Roger Stern with Jim Shooter as the editor-in-chief. This issue is basically just a day in the life issue, kind of catching us up on many of our characters. Some of them aren't featured as heavily as some of the others, but the X-Men have returned to the mansion, and they are trying to get everything back up and running. Because a few issues ago, Lilandra convinced Professor X to leave Earth and come with her back to the Shi'ar government and be her imperial consort, and so he shut down the phone lines, shut down Cerebro and the Blackbird and everything, and just left everything basically shut down. And so the X-Men are kind of getting everything up and running in this issue. And there is an issue of Power Man and Iron Fist where the X-Men were guest stars, and they fought the Living Monolith, who we haven't seen in the X-Men books since the Neil Adams era in the 60s. I do not have that issue, so I will not be examining it, but it is referenced in this issue briefly. But we start with Colossus in the Danger Room, and he is struggling. He says, please turn it off. He's got two walls that are coming in on him, and he is holding them back, but he's struggling. And in the control room, Cyclops and Wolverine say he's nowhere near his full strength. So what's going on? And so Wolverine subtly uses his claws to sabotage the control panel so that Cyclops cannot turn off the walls. And then he goes down and gets in between the walls and basically says, Peter, you're either going to have to watch me die, or you're going to have to push these walls back and keep them from closing in on us. And Peter is able to do it. And then we find out basically Peter's problem has been psychological. For a while now, there have been hints that Peter doesn't feel like he can pull his own weight. In the issue where Magneto had kidnapped them, there was a little bit of that. And then again when they were fighting Moses Magnum. And we find out here all of that has to do with basically Peter is homesick. Which again we saw a little bit of that in the Christmas issue where they defeated Moses Magnum. He told Storm that he misses his family. And none of the other X-Men can really understand what he's going through because they do not have actual living family to miss like he does. And it's weird because Peter even says, yeah, I guess I just thought since I missed my family, I would just stop trying. And it doesn't quite jive with like him going overboard and being very zealous whenever he was going after Moses Magnum a few issues ago. But okay, there's seeds here for some stuff that will be picked up on much later. In the 90s, Peter's parents will be killed, and then later Illyana, his younger sister, will die of the legacy virus. And Peter kind of internalizes a lot of guilt because of that. He feels, and I would say somewhat rightly so, that if he had just never said yes to Professor Xavier back in Giant Size issue 1, that his parents and his sister might still be alive. At the very least, his sister would not have gone through everything that happened with Inferno, where her soul was nearly lost. All this stuff likely would not have happened if he was not connected to the X-Men. And we had a whole lot of stuff there where Professor X would say, Peter, I need you to go and punch the acolytes in the face. And then he would come back and they'd say, oh, sorry, Peter, while you were gone, Illyana died. And Peter is angry at himself and then also angry at Professor X, thinking, you know, you have a dozen X-Men. Why did you need me to leave Illyana's side while she was at death's door? And a lot of that has its roots here. We are seeing that Peter misses his family, and yet he's staying with the X-Men. And so later on, in the 90s, where we see that he gives up his connection with the X-Men, and it has to do with him losing his family, we probably wouldn't have gotten a lot of that in the 90s if it wasn't for what is being planted here. But it's still executed very bizarrely here. But I do like this Wolverine moment where he sabotages the panel and basically forces Peter, you are going to have to save me or I will die. Now, later on, when we find out that Wolverine has an adamantium skeleton, maybe he wouldn't have died, but it's still a good moment here. And then Cyclops kind of goes on a date with Colleen Wing, and not too long ago on Twitter, the Claremont Run, which is a Twitter account that focuses on Chris Claremont's X-Men and does a lot of really deep dive thematic stuff. Whereas in my videos here, I mostly just talk about the plot stuff. The Claremont Run gets much more into the analytical stuff and themes. So if you're interested in that, go check them out on Twitter. But they talked about how Claremont wanted to use Colleen Wing and Misty Knight permanently in the X-Men series because he had used them when he was writing Iron Fist, and John Byrne was with him on Iron Fist, and he wanted to bring them over to the X-Men. And at first, the writer, I believe Ed Hannigan, the writer who was writing Power Man and Iron Fist said yes, and then he left, and then Joe Duffy was the new editor on that book, and she said, no, those guys are Power Man and Iron Fist characters. They need to come back to this series. So in this issue, Colleen Wing, she gives Cyclops a key to her apartment, and then we don't see her again in this series. Or if we do, it's a long time from now in a small cameo role. But over the last couple of issues, we've been building this relationship between Cyclops and Colleen because Cyclops believes that Jean Grey is dead, and so he's trying to move on. In the Alpha Flight issue, I think 2 issues ago, we saw them kind of hugging up on each other asleep on the plane, and then here they go on a date. She gives him a key to her apartment, and then it goes nowhere. So that's why a little bit of behind-the-scenes stuff going on there, why that plot doesn't go forward any. Also, Storm, she goes to the apartment building that her parents used to live in. I don't remember in previous issues if it said she was born in America or if her parents just met in America and then she was born in Africa. But she goes to the apartment building, and it is overrun by young junkies, teenagers. They try to attack her. One of them cuts her hand with a knife, and then she attacks them, and then Luke Cage and Misty Knight show up and save her, and then they basically say, yeah, we're superheroes, but there are some problems we cannot solve. And then we also have Logan. He drops her off where she goes in, and then he sees Mariko going into a building, and when he tries to go and talk to her, the doorman says no, she is not to be disturbed. And then that's it we get with Mariko and Logan for now. Then we see in Scotland, Jean is still with Moria, Alex, Lorna, and Jamie Madrox, and then she bumps into a guy named Jason Wingard. And then if you are familiar at all with X-Men lore and the Dark Phoenix saga, you probably know this is Mastermind, who we have not seen in these Examining the X-Men videos probably since the Beast solo stories in the early 70s, but he is in disguise now as a handsome devil, as Jean calls him. I don't know, the whole like mutton chop coming down into a mustache thing, that doesn't really do anything for me, but apparently Jean is really into it. But we do see his shadow does not match who he is, and we are not told this is Mastermind, but that shadow is Mastermind's shadow. And so longtime X-Men fans would see that and they would probably say, hang on a second, something weird going on here. But this is some very early foreshadowing for what's going to be going on in the Dark Phoenix saga. And then at the end of the issue, we get a little 2-page bit where Black Tom Cassidy and the Juggernaut are going to hire Arcade to take out the X-Men. And I will talk more about Arcade next issue. We really don't get much with him. This is not his first appearance. He did appear in an issue of Marvel Team Up fighting Spider-Man and I believe Captain Britain. I do not have that issue, so I have not examined it. So this is my first experience with Arcade in this series. We also did briefly get a thing where Professor X was with Lilandra, and basically they're both like, man, we miss Earth. This is all a little too much, but whatever, we're here now, we're going to have to make the best of it. So not a whole lot of conflict in this issue. Like I said, basically just a day in the life issue, which is nice. Every now and then you want to just slow down and kind of spend some time with your characters. You don't necessarily always have to have explosions and punching. Every now and then you want to just kind of get to know these characters. And Claremont has talked before. There's a documentary that I think is on Amazon Prime where he said that people they got to the point where they would go to him and they would say they missed keeping up with the X-Men's lives. Not their adventures, but their lives. And you get a little bit of that here, and you can see that means a lot to Claremont as well. That obviously this is a superhero comic, and so you're going to have the punching and explosions, but he is very invested in these characters going through changes in their lives and actually being real people and not just a costume that punches people. So that's about it for this issue, so let's consider this one examined.